saying, it's so true. But at the same time, if we emphasize it and we approach it the right way and provide the whatever it needs, like take for instance Rosetta Stone. We are experimenting with it for the higher groups like group 7 and 8. Why not? Because it's so research based, and it has become one of the most usable, successful language acquisition course, and it starts at different levels, and they have a student version now. So we are trying to make use of those tools, because that we can allow the students to take a CD-ROM home, because I think most of students have some kind of a computer now, a laptop or whatever, and they can use it at home. And that's my goal, because again, as Mr. Spring said, they don't hear the Dutch language around them.
That's true.
And neither on the newspapers or on the radio stations. And nowadays, I don't think many people listen to the radio anyway. But if we can give them tools, and I am thinking, you know, what other way, like even the Facebook and stuff, how can we kind of interject that kind of, yes, that, or Dutch classes, Dutch clubs, for instance, where the students who are really excited about, because that's where it all starts. It just takes like a handful to start a trend. And we are really exploring those things, Angelique, because it's hard. It's not an easy task, but I am a firm believer that it can be done. And it's happening. So we're going to also have a newspaper that the school will produce, that the children will have to read to the parents, so that they too can learn some basic, yes, English or Dutch. Yeah.
And to support what Mr. Spring and Mrs. Stephen just mentioned, we should go towards longer school hours. Because right now, for us, the Catholic schools, we finish at 1:45. And hopefully in the near future, we can go up until 3 o'clock. I know the Max school used to have school until 3 o'clock. And I'm sure the results then probably was much more better or higher, if I may say, than they are right now.
By leaps and bounds.
And seeing that the standards at the end for Group 8 students for the FBE exit exam, the standards for the Dutch language and the English language are the same, whether your language of instruction is Dutch or English. We need more time to be able to put more in our students to get more out. And to do that, we should have longer school hours.
You know, I agree that parents should be given choice, but we are a melting pot, and we will always have, be affiliated with Holland for a long time. Even some may want independence. And English will always be our language. You know, we have to face that. So my ideal situation would be actually a bilingual education for all schools. Actually, you know, that we have that throughout, instead of having, you know, the differences and the constant, I mean, we all know that challenges and having that competition is good. But I would like to see all of our students excelling in the languages. My ideal situation for St. Martin would be that we have a bilingual education. And of course, I believe in choice for parents, you know, that they can have a choice choosing between the English or the Dutch language. However, our situation is very unique on St. Martin, and I feel that Mrs. Aventurin did say that children learn languages at an early age. And if we could actually have our kids learning English, Dutch, and French, you know, from an early age, and have them become fluent in the writing, reading, and as well as the speaking, I think that would be the ideal situation for St. Martin. But we'll come back to that. I'll get your thoughts on that when we come back. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Mrs. Aventurin.
Go ahead,
Well, as
ladies.
Mr. Spring was just explaining, it's very important that our government school, that they offer the bilingual program. And then, of course, you have the private schools that can offer probably something even more. And the different languages, like Mr. Spring just mentioned again, we know that a child can learn 5 languages easily on the island of St. Martin because we are a melting pot. So why not offer as much as we can to our students and not just limit it to just language of instruction, English, because the mother tongue is English, but with a melting pot, you have so many different mother tongues. So offer as much as you can within your schools.
Yeah, and Angelique, I support you there with having bilingual education on the island. But there are 2 things that are necessary right now. One, government need to have a very, very, very proactive, if that's the word, language policy. We just talk about it, but I don't think much have been done. We at the MAC, we're developing a language policy which should really be able to cater for any child in the mother tongue. And that goes back to your comment about the melting pot. Our schools supposed to be able to educate any child in its mother tongue. That is, if a child come here with Spanish as his mother tongue, we're supposed to be able to educate that child, not necessarily throughout the whole with the Spanish, but we should have enough versatility within the school to get that child in a foundation from using Spanish and get him over probably into either English or Dutch. And the same with, vice versa. So the bilingual education, they will be very important. But what we need most of all to support it, and up to 2 days ago I was speaking to my members of my school board, is that we have to have a language lab in the schools, especially the secondary school. St. Martin needs a lot of persons with the acquisition of language. Look at our tourism base. Our tour guides should be able to speak at least 3 languages. So when they go on the buses, they speak in English, they speak in Spanish, or speak whatever the case is. The people in our hotels should be versed in speaking 2 or 3 languages because we have a tourist-based economy. And your education system should fit in nicely with your economy. And then when we are doing that, then we are really doing something for the development of the country. So language labs are very important, especially in elementary, in secondary school. And we need more of our young people to get to become ambassadors for St. Martin. And these I know with technology, sometimes people speak in English, you have an headphone and you hear Spanish. But with some of our young people should start to look forward to being ambassadors to St. Martin. So the high school should provide, give us those type of persons with 3 or fluently in writing and speaking 3 languages at least.
Or maybe what should be done within the high schools, and I know a lot of children might not want it, but maybe they should make Spanish and French compulsory. I mean, why I say that is because Spanish is the 2nd language of the world, and French probably the 3rd. And St. Martin being partly Dutch and French, I think that French should definitely be enforced. And I can say for myself, in school I had Spanish and French. The reason why I might be, we have that fear of speaking a different language. But I can understand both languages very well. My Spanish is a lot better than my French, maybe because we have so many Spanish-speaking people here. But I believe if it was approached differently, I might be fluent in speaking both French and in Spanish.
Yes.
And it's a plus to be able to have those languages.
And it should take us anything because look at the French side is just close by. We could always have exchange of students and whatever the case is.
But whatever we have, whatever we implement, there should be a choice. Like you just mentioned, it should be mandatory in secondary school. It is mandatory until Form 3, where they have to cover Spanish and French. But after that, they can choose,
right.
because you don't know if language is their strength
Right.
in order to pass the final exams later. Along with what Mr. Spring said, that's the ideal situation, but we have to be aware too of the challenges that will come along in having all of these, or having the languages, different languages implemented in our primary school as well as secondary schools. Because right now, it's a manhunt really for us to recruit teachers for just the Dutch and English that we have. So, mind you now, when we add other languages,
That's the challenge.
as what are we going to do? It's
We go
not
to the
easy,
island.
really.
Yes,
Do we really
to get in.
Because I know that, for example, with the SWOBA, the Milton Peters and Sundial schools, that they often go to Holland to recruit teachers. But I mean, is Holland the only choice we have? I mean, we have neighboring islands. I mean, why do we have to go so far? What is the criteria, really?
But you don't have to go, but they choose to go because it's always good to meet the person, to meet the teacher that you're going to recruit or hire in person and have that open conversation with them, because you see a whole lot more than just what they are writing in their application letter, or rather you Skype with them or what have you. So meeting that person,
No, I didn't mean the actual meeting. I'm
No,
talking
yeah,
about
for the recruitment
the
field-
recruitment I'm
field,
talking
yeah.
about.
no, you can recruit from Holland, but you also can recruit from Suriname and all the neighboring islands. It's not necessarily Holland,
yeah.
but because their language of instruction is Dutch, so you're going to recruit from Holland.
It's
Most of your teachers.
with a good program in the secondary school where language is concerned. I mean, for the first 5 years we'll be scrambling, but after 5 years with a good program, those same young people will be able to come to be teachers, because that's what they do in the British Islands. For example, place like St. Vincent, you go to high school, you learn French, Spanish, English. Latin. We don't learn Dutch.
We
And
gotta
then
convince them.
those young people, when they finish high school, they get into teachers college. They've been out trained. They come back and teach the language. So
But there's just few that wants to become
teachers.
teachers.
well, that is where the problem
and
is.
yeah, and we need
But
to
you
come
know
up
why
with
as
a
well?
solution.
Because the teachers don't feel, and being a teacher still, I mean, sometimes teachers don't feel appreciated when they come back. And you often hear teachers saying this. You know, what is offered to a teacher who's not from here is not the same as being offered to me who's a local. And therefore, you feel like you're neglected, and why would I want to come back? That's some of the arguments you hear from certain teachers. But I believe we're out of time for our first program. We're going to continue this discussion in the part 2 of our educational forum. So thank you, Mrs. Stevens, from the Foundation of the Christian Schools, Hillside Christian Schools, Mrs. Aventurin from the Catholic School Board, and Mr. Spring from the Methodist Agogic Center Foundation. Thank you so much for being a part of A Better Place, and we'll continue our discussions in part 2 of our program. And to you, our viewing audience, I would like to thank you so much for having been a part of this very informative, interesting forum on education. Stay tuned for part 2. I am your host, Angelique Rumou.